Welcome to Tech Primers. In this video, we are going to see what is GST. So if you are in India currently, so you will know this buzz term GST. So that is getting implemented right from today, July 1st. So let's see what is this GST, and I'll tell you what I know about GST. I just went through this clear tax description on GST and how will it affects us and how it is going to change the way tax was levied on different items and how it was previously, and we are going to compare how it is going to be after the GST is implemented, right? So let's get started. So GST is nothing but goods and services tax. So it is basically a multi-stage tax. Let's see, in the due course you will know what is this multi-stage tax. So basically the tax will be levied on the value addition at each level. Right. Also, this GST is not something new which the government has done. So this GST was implemented long back. So we will. It started long back. Basically, the idea of GST started long back before 16 years, I guess. So we'll see that also the history of GST, how it started and where it was blocked, and how the progress went, and how we are right right. So what is the GST and multi-stage taxes, right? So the multi-stage, let's understand what is this multi-stage tax. So basically, if you consider a product, right, so before the product is created, the manufacturer buys the raw materials, then he manufactures that, then he moves that to a warehouse. From the warehouse he moves it to a retailer. From the retailer it goes to a customer. So that is how it happens, right? A typical product reaches a customer in this particular life cycle. So what happens is every time, if you move from one stage to another, so for example, when you buy your raw materials you have to pay a tax. When you manufacture and sell it to a wholesaler you have to pay a tax. So when it comes from the wholesaler to the retailer has to pay a tax, the wholesaler has to pay a tax. Then from the retailer to the customer has to pay a tax. So it's like a tax is levied at every stage of it, and the tax is constant. So how much ever you buy, how much ever you sell, so the tax is always constant. So what happened was everybody was paying the same amount of tax for, even though there was a small value addition. So from the say wholesaler to retailer there won't be much of value addition. He will just stamp his label or something like that, that's it. But still you have to pay again the tax. So if you consider the whole life cycle, you are paying the same tax in too many places, right? So that is why GST has been created. So let's see what is a value addition. So as I said, right, stamping a label is a value addition. So for example, if you take this particular example, buying the raw materials is getting your cotton materials for making your clothes, and then you make that into a t-shirt. So that is a value addition. From the t-shirt to adding a label, that is another value addition. From the label and then again sealing it and packaging it, that is another value addition. So these are different value additions. So what in GST what we are going to do is we are going to pay tax only for the value addition. So the guy who bought the raw material, he would have paid the tax. So the guy who buys the t-shirt, he will pay the tax. So the guy who's stamping the label doesn't have to pay the tax which is already paid. So you just add the tax only, you just pay the tax only for the value addition. So that is what is going to be changing. So that is the basic difference between the GST and the previous tax um, policy, right? So if you notice, this is how it will be. So the previous pattern was like when you buy a raw material you pay a VAT, then you when you manufacture it and when you sell it to a wholesaler you have to pay the VAT plus the excise duty, and then from the wholesaler to the retailer you have to pay VAT, and then fine again from the retailer to the customer you have to pay VAT. So the VAT is paid at each level, right? So here also we are going to pay the tax at each level. However, it is going to be only on the value added by that particular um, seller. Okay, so that is what is the major difference, right? So how does this GST work, right? So there are three different GSTs. One is the central GST, one is the state GST, and one is the interstate GST. So it is like central government will be controlling it, but it is for interstate sales. So let's say you are buying from one state, you're buying from Gujarat and selling it into Maharashtra, right? So that so you have to pay IGST in that case. You don't have to pay the state government, but you have to pay the central government, stating that it is an interstate sale and interstate tax. Okay, but if you are inside the state, you have to inside the state it will be central plus state. So it will be CGST plus SGST. Okay, there will be two taxes. So that is what is mentioned here. So previously these terms were called as VAT and service tax. Now it is all like GST. Either it is central GST or state GST or IGST, interstate GST. Right. So for example, this is the old regime. So previously we used to call it VAT and service tax. Now it is going to be called CGST and SGST. And the interstate tax was previously called as central sales tax and service tax. Now that is going to be changed into IGST. Okay, that is a major change. So in all your receipts you must be seeing these terms only, so you won't see any VAT term or the service tax hereafter. Okay, so let's take a typical example, right? That is what is explained here. So I'll show you. So let's say the manufacturer buys the product or the raw material at 100. Okay, so they buy raw material with a cost of 100 rupees, let's say, right? Let's take it as 100 rupees. So the tax which they pay is 10%, let's say. So 10% is the tax which you need to pay for this particular product, right? So he bought the raw materials, he paid 10 percentage of tax, so the cost is 110, right? So and also the manufacturer bought the raw materials at 110, he manufactured the product and he is now selling at 150, right? So he's having a profit of 40 rupees. So now he is selling at 150. Now the tax he has to pay is 15 percentage. So 15 percentage of 150 is whatever, of 100 is whatever 165, and then the cost adds up to like 165, right? So same way for every stage you have to pay that much amount of tax. So if you notice here, 195, again you have to pay the 10%, sorry, not 15%, it's 10%, right, across everywhere. So 10% of 50, 150 is 15. Same way 195 is 19.5. So everywhere you have to pay the same 10% tax, even though you did a small value addition of only few rupees, right? So that is what is the current tax regime. So if you see GST, how it will change is the same 100, you are buying the same raw material for 100 rupees, you will pay the 10% tax, right? So you are liable for only 10 rupees, so 110. So now the manufacturer is going to sell at 140. If he sells us 140, the 10% of tax is 14. However, the 10 is already paid by the previous guy when he bought the raw material. So you don't have to pay 14, you just deduct 14 minus 10 and you pay only 4. So the manufacturer pays only 4, the manufacturer or the next level guy will be paying only 4 rupees. Okay, same way for the next value addition. For example, let's say he's adding a label, right? So he's adding a value addition of 30 rupees, and the tax for that is 17. So he already the tax paid is 14, so he has to pay only 3 rupees tax. So that is how the change happens in GST versus the previous regime. So if you notice, the previously the same product would have got shipped at 214 rupees 50 paise, and now it is 187 rupees. So the tax, if you see, has got reduced because the tax is accumulated. So it's like multi-stage tax, so you don't have to pay tax every for the whole of the item. For whatever value addition you added, you need to pay tax only for that. So if you notice here, the value addition was 40 rupees, and 40 rupees of 10 percentage whatever is 4 rupees, that is what they are paying. Same way here, the value addition is 30 rupees, and 3 rupees is the tax. So that is the major difference. So I'll repeat again. So GST is goods and services tax. So the change in this particular GST is you will be paying tax per value addition only at each stage of a shipment. So let's say manufacturer is buying a product, so he will pay some tax there. When he manufactures the product, so he doesn't have to pay the tax for the whole product. He has to reduce the tax he already paid for the raw materials, and he has to pay the tax only for the uh, final value addition which we gave. So same way for every stage, people have to pay the tax only for the value addition they made. So that is the major difference in GST, and that is the change in GST, right? So as I said earlier, this is the history of GST. So if you notice here, GST was initially proposed during the period of Vajpayee. So when Vajpayee was the prime minister, so that time GST was proposed and it was started. So in 2000 it was started, and later in 2004, these are the different stages. So you can go through this. I will just paste this URL in the description below, so you can take a look at in depth of what was the history. So right now, if you notice here, 2017 we are live. So right from today, July 1st, you can see all the bills with the updated GST um, information. But the government is saying that it is you should be doing it from today. However, I'm not sure if everyone is following that and everyone has updated their software. So you might find some delays in the receipt with the updated GST information, right? In some outlets. So that's it about GST. So if you have any doubts or queries, drop in the comment below. So if you haven't subscribed to channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you.